What if everything you believed about the most painful moment of your life was a lie? What if the person you spent decades resenting was, in fact, your silent guardian? Tonight, I'm going to share a story that challenges everything we think we know about abandonment, sacrifice, and the breathtaking power of forgiveness. This isn't just another Christmas tale. This is a raw, true account of how a single knock on a door shattered 20 years of silence and resurrected a hope everyone thought was long dead. You'll meet a mother drowning in loneliness, a daughter haunted by a family secret, and a mysterious anonymous gift that held the key to it all. If you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or unloved, this story will hit you right in the chest and might just leave you believing that second chances don't just happen in movies. They happen in real life, on Christmas Eve, when a lost and found truth finally comes home. You know, there are some pains that time just doesn't seem to erase. They settle deep in the soul, especially when they're tied to a day that's supposed to be all about joy and togetherness. For Maria, Christmas Eve was a yearly reminder of a loneliness so profound, it felt like a physical weight. The financial struggle after her father vanished was real, but the emotional void was a far heavier burden to carry. Her mother, Elena, never spoke of him again, burying the memory as if it had never existed. This unspoken family secret became the ghost at every holiday feast, a silent presence everyone felt but no one dared to acknowledge. The art of their storytelling always carefully edited out the man who left, leaving a gaping hole in their family's narrative. Now, imagine carrying that for 2 decades. The questions that never got answered, the whys that echo in the silence of a Christmas night. Maria learned to build walls, to protect herself from the hurt of being left behind. She built a life, a tough exterior, but inside, that little girl still waited by the window, hoping for a miracle. This is where so many of us get stuck, isn't it? We let a past hurt define our present, building fortresses around our hearts. We stop believing in forgiveness because the pain feels safer, more familiar. But what if I told you that the very thing you're guarding against is the key to your second chance? Let's get practical for a moment. If you're holding on to an old wound, I'm not going to tell you to just get over it. That's nonsense. But I will challenge you to do one small thing. Acknowledge its story. Write it down. Talk to a trusted friend. Give that pain a voice, because a secret loses its power once it's brought into the light. It's the first, bravest step toward reconciliation with your own past. You don't have to have all the answers right now. You just have to be willing to ask the questions. What would your life look like if you weren't carrying that weight anymore? Maria carried on, year after year, the Christmas celebrations feeling more like a performance than a genuine joy. She became the rock for her mother, the successful daughter, but the shadow of her father's absence was a constant companion. It's a funny thing about life, though, just when you think your story is set in stone, something or someone comes along and turns the page for you. The universe has a peculiar way of orchestrating events, often using the most unexpected help to set the stage for a healing you never saw coming. The foundation of her carefully constructed world was about to be tested, and the knock was coming. Let's talk about Elena, the mother, for a moment. We often see the strength in silence, but we rarely appreciate the immense sacrifice it requires. For 20 years, she worked double shifts, her hands worn from cleaning other people's houses, all to give Maria a shot at a better life. She never bought herself a new coat, and her own Christmas list was always blank. Her greatest act of kindness was shielding her daughter from the bitterness she felt, choosing to bear that burden alone. She was a pillar of the community, always the first to help a neighbor, yet she lived with a private sorrow that defined her every waking moment. That, my friend, is the definition of dignity under pressure. But here's the thing about secrets, they have a weight to them. They're like rocks in your pocket. You can only carry them for so long before you start to sink. Elena kept a single box hidden in the back of her closet, a time capsule of a life she once had. Inside was a faded photograph, a man's wedding ring, and a handful of letters tied with a ribbon. This was her lost and found, a collection of a love that was, and the painful evidence of a promise broken. She thought by hiding it, she was protecting her daughter, but some truths have a way of demanding to be heard, especially when the heart is ready to heal. Now, I want you to consider this. What's the one thing you're protecting someone from that might actually be holding you both back? Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is to be vulnerable, to share the load. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Think of a family heirloom tucked away, or a story never told. That's a piece of your history. Sharing it could be the very unexpected help that mends a fractured relationship. It's not about reopening old wounds. It's about finally cleaning them so they can heal properly. The power of shared storytelling within a family can be the most potent medicine. The tension in their small apartment was a silent character in their lives, a quiet understanding that some topics were off-limits. Maria sensed her mother's sadness, a deep ocean of grief she was never invited to navigate. Yet, in the quiet moments, she'd see her mother staring out the window on Christmas Eve, as if expecting someone. It was a silent vigil, a testament to a hope that never fully died. Little did Maria know, the threads of their separate pains were about to be woven together by a force neither of them could have predicted, a force that was, at that very moment, making its way toward their door. Now, life has a funny way of sending us messengers when we least expect them, but often when we need them the most. For Maria and Elena, it wasn't a lawyer or a long-lost relative who showed up first. It was old Ben, the building's janitor for the last 30 years. He was the eyes and ears of the place, a man who moved through the halls unnoticed, yet saw everything. He'd watched Maria grow up, had seen Elena's quiet struggle, and had always held a piece of the puzzle, a secret he'd promised long ago to keep. But a man's conscience can only carry so much, and the season of forgiveness has a way of stirring the soul. Ben's own story was one of financial struggle and redemption. He'd been given a second chance years ago by a stranger's act of kindness, and he'd made it his life's mission to pay it forward in small, unseen ways. He was the living proof that hope often wears the worn-out clothes of a working man. He'd leave a warm meal for a struggling single mother, or anonymously cover a month's rent for a family on the brink, his own form of anonymous gift to the world. He understood that dignity isn't about pride. It's about the quiet strength to help others without needing a spotlight. So, what's the lesson here for you? Look around you. The person who might hold the key to your next breakthrough could be the one you pass by every single day without a second glance. The delivery driver, the cashier, the security guard. Practice seeing the people in your community. Make it a point this week to genuinely ask one person, "How are you really?" and mean it. You'd be amazed at the doors that open, the connections that form, and the unexpected help that finds its way to you when you acknowledge the humanity in others. This isn't just nice advice, it's a strategy for life. Ben had been holding a letter for 20 years, entrusted to him by a desperate man on a cold Christmas Eve. The instruction was simple. If I don't come back, give this to my Elena. For 2 decades, Ben wrestled with this promise, watching the family's loneliness from a distance. But this year, something felt different. The weight of the family's secret was becoming too heavy for him to bear alone. He took the yellowed envelope from his toolbox, his hands trembling not from age, but from the gravity of the truth he was about to unleash. The knock he was about to make would change everything, but it was a knock that was 2 decades overdue. And then it came, a sound so ordinary, yet on that particular Christmas Eve, it felt like the universe itself was rapping on their door. It wasn't a loud, aggressive pound, but a hesitant, almost reverent tap-tap-tap that seemed to echo through 20 years of silence. Maria, who was hanging a lonely ornament on the tree, froze. Her mother, Elena, dropped the plate she was drying, the shattering porcelain a stark contrast to the quiet night. In that fractured moment, the loneliness that had been their constant companion was challenged by a single, simple sound. It was the sound of the past demanding to be let in. Now, think about your own life for a second. How many times have you hesitated to answer a knock on your own door? A difficult conversation you need to have, a risk you're afraid to take, a piece of truth you're scared to face? We barricade ourselves behind fear, thinking it's keeping us safe, when all it's doing is keeping us stuck. Opening that door, whatever it represents, is the ultimate act of kindness you can offer yourself. It's the first step toward your own reconciliation with a truth you've been avoiding. The financial struggle, the broken relationship, it all starts to heal the moment you choose to face it. Maria was the one who moved first, her heart hammering a rhythm of fear and a bizarre, fleeting hope. She walked to the door, each step feeling like a mile, her mind racing with 1,000 possibilities, none of them good. Was it the landlord? A neighbor in need? She took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the knob. This was it. The moment a family secret was either about to be buried forever or unravel in the light. The power of this moment in her storytelling was immense. It was the pivot point, the instant her old story ended and a new one was about to begin. She opened the door, and there stood old Ben, the janitor, his face etched with a strange mix of apology and resolve. He wasn't there to collect rent or fix a leak. In his trembling, work-worn hands, he held not a tool, but a simple, yellowed envelope. His eyes met Elena's over Maria's shoulder, and in that silent exchange, a decades-old promise was being fulfilled. He didn't say a word. He simply extended the letter, an anonymous gift of truth that had cost him 20 years of his peace. The unexpected help had arrived not with a bang, but with a whisper of paper, and the real story was finally, after all this time, about to be read. Inside that envelope wasn't just a letter. It was a ghost, a time machine, a judge and jury all in one. Elena's hands trembled so violently she could barely hold the paper, each word a landmine in the quiet field of their living room. The letter began with a plea for forgiveness, a desperate man's explanation for an impossible choice. He hadn't abandoned them out of a lack of love, but because of a crushing financial struggle, a debt to dangerous people that put their very lives at risk. His leaving was the ultimate sacrifice, a misguided attempt to protect them, to lead the wolves away from his family's door. Can you imagine carrying that truth for 20 years? Believing you were unloved, only to discover you were loved too much? This is where the real work of reconciliation begins. It's not about erasing the past, it's about reframing it. It's about finding the dignity in someone else's painful choice, even when it broke you. Think about a grudge you hold. What if you looked at that situation from a completely different angle? What if the person who hurt you was, in their own flawed way, trying their best with the tools they had? This isn't about excusing behavior. It's about freeing yourself from the prison of a single, painful narrative. Maria watched her mother crumble, not in anger, but in a profound, grieving relief. The story she had told herself her entire life, the story of abandonment, was being rewritten before her eyes. The loneliness she had worn like a coat began to feel less heavy. This is the power of truth, my friend. It can be devastating, yes, but it's also the only foundation upon which you can build a future that isn't haunted by the past. The family secret was out, and its poison was finally being drawn, replaced by the painful, beautiful balm of understanding. But the letter held one final, staggering revelation. The father hadn't just been running from something. He had been running toward a goal. Every single day for those 20 years, he had worked and scrimped, living in the shadows to pay off every last cent of that debt. And with the final payment made, he had sent every extra penny back, in the form of an anonymous gift that had paid for Maria's education, for the roof over their heads, all funneled through the only person he still trusted, old Ben. The unexpected help they had received for years, the second chance they never knew they had come from the man they thought had forgotten them. The knock on the door was just the beginning. The real earthquake was in the reading. The truth, now laid bare on that Christmas Eve, didn't magically erase 20 years of pain. Oh no, that's not how real life works. The room was thick with a storm of emotions, grief for the lost time, anger at the misguided sacrifice, but also a fragile, budding sense of hope. It was a confusing, painful, yet necessary chaos. Elena looked from the letter to Ben, the quiet keeper of their truth, and she didn't see a betrayer. She saw a man who had shouldered a tremendous burden out of loyalty, a living example of an act of kindness that had cost him his peace for 2 decades. Her forgiveness had to extend to him, too. And this, right here, is where many people get stuck. They receive a painful truth, and they freeze. They don't know what to do with the shattered pieces of their old reality. But let me tell you what Maria did. Through her tears, she walked over to old Ben, still standing awkwardly by the door, and she hugged him. It was a simple gesture, but it was an earthquake. It was her saying, "I see your sacrifice, and I thank you." That single act, my friend, is how you start. You find one person caught in the crossfire of your pain, and you offer them grace. You break the cycle. This whole incredible storytelling of their lives was a masterclass in how unexpected help often wears the most familiar face. It was about the dignity of a working-class community that holds each other up without any fanfare. Ben wasn't a hero in a cape. He was a janitor. The father wasn't a villain. He was a broken man trying to protect his family. Life is never just black and white. It's a million shades of gray, and understanding that is the beginning of wisdom. Your own second chance might be hiding in a story you haven't been willing to hear, from a person you haven't been willing to see. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, marking the true beginning of Christmas, something had shifted irrevocably in that apartment. The loneliness was no longer an empty space. It was a space now filled with a difficult, complicated, but real truth. The financial struggle had a name and a face, and in understanding it, it lost its power over them. The family secret was a secret no more, and in its place lay the raw, messy materials for a new beginning. The door to the past was finally closed, but as Maria looked at her mother and at Ben, she knew another door was just beginning to creak open, and the light from the other side was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. So what's the real treasure buried inside this story? It's not about a dramatic reunion or a financial miracle. It's about the quiet courage to reframe your own pain. To ask yourself, what if the story I've been telling myself is incomplete? What if that person who hurt you was fighting a battle you knew nothing about? True forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of a one-sided narrative. It's about reclaiming your dignity not through pride, but through compassion. Now, I want you to think about your own life. Is there a letter you need to write? Not necessarily to send, but to set your heart free? Is there a conversation you've been avoiding because you're afraid of what you might discover? Maybe it's time to knock on that door. Maybe it's time to be someone's unexpected help, like Ben. Or perhaps, just perhaps, it's time to finally accept that second chance the universe has been quietly offering you. Let me ask you something straight. Are you ready to stop letting your past dictate your future? Can you find the strength to replace loneliness with connection, financial struggle with creative resilience, and silent suffering with powerful storytelling? Your life is the most important story you will ever tell, so why not make it one of redemption? If this message stirred something inside you, if you believe in the power of hope, reconciliation, and everyday miracles, then do me one favor. Subscribe to this channel and hit that bell notification. Why? Because we're just getting started. Every week, we dive deep into real human drama that reminds you you're not alone in your struggles, and your comeback story is waiting to be written. Don't miss it.